Hey Bella, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Bella Sanchez. I'm going to be a senior at Vandergrift. And I just recently launched my own small business slash blog called You, Us, and Earth, relating to climate justice and mental health advocacy. Um, I'm really excited because we just released new eco-friendly jewelry that will go to charity and hopefully, support the cause of stopping climate change. And so yeah.
Yeah. And so it's neat that, we're kind of like two media-based things that are working to advocate for mental health. And so I think it would be
Yes.
very important for us to sort of discuss that. And so do you think you have had any like mental health or mind experiences while preparing, like, I guess this business, because that can be a very competitive sort of thing, right?
Oh, definitely. Literally from the start. Um, I've always kind of, been a perfectionist with everything I've done. But this business has always been kind of, intrinsically made. It's always just been my own interest. It's never been for like a school project. So that just kind of adds to, the point of how much I really put into it and how much I cared about it. Um, what I can say is when I first started it, it was literally just myself. I started my business in January and I was doing every single piece of it. And I thought that was realistic at the time, but it's not whatsoever. I remember trying to make jewelry, write the blog, keep up with the Instagram page, um, try to make TikToks, try to design the website. It's just too much to do. Um, but for some reason, I always want something to be in my hands. I'm a little too much of a perfectionist, and I think it definitely followed through with the making of my website because I often catch myself spending hours and hours and hours just editing, and I can't stop. Like I just cannot stop myself. But I've known that I've done this before. I've literally done it before with like academic stuff, and I just can't stop myself if I'm hooked onto it. And it came a little bit unhealthy at sometimes because I would just be too, glued to it, and I would always just be disappointed with everything I've done, and it just became really frustrating at some points. And I would just have to take breaks from the website and just resort myself somewhere else because I really couldn't do it any longer. Um, that was definitely a really big struggle for me. Still is.
Yeah, I think a lot of competitors can relate to that. Just because whenever you're doing like a competition, you don't really settle. Like in your mind, you always want to be at the top just because it's a competition, and you never sort of want to settle for less. And so I think perfectionism is like
I
a,
agree with that.
yeah, perfectionism is always like a thing that competitors struggle with, and that in basically that is probably like the root source of all the anxiety, stress, and all those things. Because whenever you don't get the rank that you want to in a competition, or maybe you're not, like, if you're, even if you're running and even if you get first, like you want to beat that record time, uh things like that can really
Yeah.
knock you down. And um there's like, I guess there's different types of perfectionism. Some of them are, most of it is like when you already have a set standard in your mind that you're working towards. Like if you're doing an academic competition, it's usually just getting first. Um, or like I said, if you're running, it's usually a time that you're going after. But the more kind of, I I guess both of them are dangerous, but like the even more dangerous type is when you don't really have a set standard, like in your case with like the website. Like there is, you can't, because if you could imagine what the perfect website did look like, then you would be able to immediately do it. But in your case, it's more of, it's less of this is what I'm striving for, and it's more of this doesn't look right. So it's less of a working towards something, but it's more of like getting away from what looks wrong, right?
I definitely agree. I definitely agree because I almost think it's almost a tie of both because I feel like I have these huge goals and I just want to keep doing better and better and better. And like it's almost like nothing will be enough once you reach your highest goal. And I feel like that mindset is so damaging for like especially any type of competitor or anybody, anything business related, anything like competition based. You just always want to do better and better. And that mindset can get so unhealthy in any type of situation revolving that. But I definitely agree with not liking the designs and stuff. I struggle with that so hard. It's almost like if you look at something too many times, or if you did it yourself, you just don't really appreciate or like how the way it looked. But if you show it to other people, they're like, "Oh, it looks fine," which I definitely, recognize a lot of the time. So I'm super glad I have a bigger team now for like more of group input. But at the start, it was definitely not fun because I just never liked the way anything looked.
Yeah, so I want to go back to that point where you said wanting to be continuously better and better is a damaging mindset. I think there's like a difference because like there's a difference between wanting to make progress and looking for something that's like not there, because I guess making a progress is recognizing that you're making progress, like improving, but wanting to be better is sort of increasing your goal each time. Because when you're making progress, your goal stays the same. That's how you can measure that you're making progress. But when you want to, like what you're saying, like a damaging mindset of wanting to be better and better, you're increasing your goal each time you make progress. So it's impossible. Because like what you're doing is, instead of keeping, like, if imagine you're climbing Mount Everest, it's like for every foot that you make, you're making Mount Everest taller instead of just going to the summit of Mount Everest, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. And so I think the best way to sort of counter that mindset of like continuously increasing your goals, no matter how much closer you get towards them. Um, and this is like, I guess the most basic thing of like, it comes down to being satisfied or not, right? And so obviously one way of doing that is just being grateful for what you have. But as humans, we're really ambitious and we always want to be bigger than what we are, just because we know we have that potential. And
Mhm.
we believe that we always have to be like bigger than we were a second ago. Um, but the other thing to that is maybe setting a goal and like keeping it there until you reach that goal. It's sort of like a common example is like you want to lose 100 pounds. And then when you lose 2 pounds, you don't necessarily look at the fact that you got closer to your goal. You look at the fact that you didn't lose 100 pounds. So your
Yeah.
goal at that point is not necessarily to lose 100 pounds like overall. It's to lose 100 pounds each time, which is unrealistic.
Yeah.
Unrealistic. And so, yeah, I guess the main like mindset thing that's important here is not to keep increasing your goals each time you make a step, which I know, like, because if you want to be the best or something, your idea of like perfect or best, instead of focusing on yourself getting better, you kind of focus on your goals getting better. But you're kind of moving, and you're kind of moving an imagined set goal farther than how you're moving. And like that's just not fair to yourself, because Like you can't
Yeah.
expect yourself to go faster than the goal that you set before. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess like it's kind of how they say like finish this before you do this. I
Yeah.
think that's like the best way to counter
Yeah.
that damaging mindset, because that way you can be satisfied, but you're also you can be satisfied, but you're also actually doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you like when you're increasing your goal each time, you feel like you're not doing anything and you're not satisfied. But when you keep your goal the same, and either way, assuming that you're like working and making progress, either way you're making progress, but just having that goal like fixed there until you reach it, that makes the entire difference. Because in one version you're getting closer to something, but in another you're getting farther and farther away, no matter how closer you're actually getting.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that's just like one tip maybe that you can use. I've used that. Like I noticed myself, I would write down what I genuinely wanted to do in my mind, and I would like recognize that my mind would say like, if I wanted to get these many questions right on like a practice test for something, and then once I got like one more question right than I've been getting, I would like increase the amount by 10. And I would say, wait a minute, I didn't even reach this goal yet. So how can I expect myself to get 10 more right if I didn't even finish this like 5 number of questions right? And so like writing down your goals and being true to who you are, and then like fixing that, like changing that each time you recognize it changes. I think that's the best way to like getting away from that damaging mindset. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I think you can try that, and anybody else that's having that problem there, that should help.
Definitely.
So other than that, do you think there's like any other aspects of like mind, I guess, things that you noticed that weren't really uh helping you in your US and Earth competitive business experience?
Mm, I think other than like, struggling on like deciding how the website can look, and just deciding, the visual aspect of it, I did find myself, I'm not sure if this is super relevant, but I did find myself struggling to, I guess, not, this sounds like a weird word, but like almost like hoarder, just wanting to take all control of everything, mainly because my friend, she is the creator of the jewelry. I gave her that position because I was like, there's no way I could do all of that. But she creates them physically. And we had an issue together. Like, I think this was almost our first argument we had, because she didn't make them, I think, make the jewelry on the specific time that I wanted, something revolving that. And I remember at the time I was just like so upset, so frustrated, because I didn't have any control over it. And knowing that it was my business, it just frustrated me and frustrated me. And I think after that, we had to, push back the date of the website and all of that. And all of my hard work is just getting delayed and delayed. I'm so tired of this. Why aren't people prioritizing me? And I think later on, I kind of, I tried to, accept these things and, I didn't want to say this as like offensive or not, but we both have different, work ethics. Everything she does is very well, obviously, but we have very different mindsets when it comes to, doing work. Not saying like as offense to her, but we just work differently. And I think I found that working with your friends is sometimes hard because I personally am not one to, I'm personally not one to, want to work with my friends and argue with them. I hate arguing. I hate confrontation. So definitely not being able to, have control over a situation does get me frustrated. And I have had that as an experience everywhere, but specifically here because I treat my like small business almost as like my baby because I've worked so long on it, so I want it to be the best it can possibly be. So if something doesn't work the way I want it to, I get really upset.
Yeah, so I think like um the first step to kind of address that issue, you actually said it yourself, is when you recognize that somebody else has a different mindset and a you said different work ethic. I think that's the first step to addressing that issue of uh like getting frustrated when you can't really control something. Um and I guess this goes back to things like recognizing what you can control and what you can't control,
Yeah.
and uh putting yourself in a position that makes you the most effective in either way. And in this case, I guess like you could theoretically control that thing by taking care of the entire jewelry
Yeah.
uh thing, but that would be like that would be counterproductive to everything else.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so like in your case, letting go of that is the best thing you can do, and then that's up to the other person's control. That's the that's essentially what you're doing by giving somebody else that position and that responsibility. That's what that means. It means that you recognize that
Mm-hmm.
some things might be out of your control. And I think what
Mm-hmm.
you did after is good there, like just learning that sometimes you might have to accept things because you can't handle everything yourself, just because that wouldn't be the most effective or productive way, that there might be some mistakes that other people make. But the way I like to think of it is I would probably make much more mistakes trying to handle everything than if I had people helping me with things. And I know it's hard to think
Yeah.
of in the moment, like when there's a mistake, and like I can imagine how hard it would be for you in that moment, like if everything got delayed and you were working so hard for like a few months. But just recognizing that in the moment that there is bound to be mistakes, because first of all, if you were perfect, if your business and everything was perfect in the first place, then you wouldn't have to do all of this, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess this is for any again, for any competitor or anything, like if your sort of journey, which all journeys should have some sort of support system outside of yourself that helps you. And if something that you can't necessarily control, there's a mistake in that, recognizing that because every journey should be a growth journey and you're always growing, there's bound to be mistakes that you learn from. Because if you deserve to make mistakes and learn from them, then the people that are helping you also deserve to make mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
like one thing that people always say is if you make a mistake once, it's okay, learn from it. But if you keep making that same mistake again, then like that's the part that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so that also just goes into forgiveness, which I think you were pretty good at. And so yeah, I guess the point here is just learning that there's bound to be mistakes somewhere, because that's part of just growing and becoming better at the goal that you set for yourself, because that's
Yeah.
really the only way you can learn, is if you don't know something and make a mistake. um and then I guess just growing in that path and being forgiving not only to others but yourself when you make those mistakes, because you recognize that you learned something from that mistake. Yeah, that would be the best way to addressing those types of things. And just in general, when there's things that you can't
Definitely.
control, when there's things that you can't control and it happens, like you shouldn't blame yourself or other people for that thing happening because it couldn't really be controlled. And there's no point in wasting your time in the present about something that already happened. What you should focus on is the present. So like learning from that, making sure it never happens again, and then moving on to something that would be much more productive than just dwelling about it in the past.
Definitely. Definitely.
And so yeah, that I guess that would be like the best way to address those things.
I definitely think dwelling is not the best way to deal with any problem at all. I think it's just best to move on, forgive people, and accept whatever happened and just, move on for the future.
Yeah. I guess like always try to, if something bad happens, always try to reframe it in a positive situation and grow from it, because that's probably the best thing you can do. And hurting other people or hurting yourself over that thing isn't going to really help you in any way. Um, and again, the only thing that you can do that would help you from that situation is to learn from it and grow from it. And in some ways, those mistakes or things are the things that make us who we are. If we didn't have those experiences or anything, we would probably just be like everybody else.
Mhm.
Because that's what, I guess that's what is considered normal by everyone. So if you were to just follow a path with no mistakes, you wouldn't really be different, because essentially that means you didn't really grow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, mistakes help us, grow and, be ourselves. Everyone has made mistakes in their lives, and they're meant to, help us learn. And nobody's perfect in anything. So that's always something to remember, especially even like if you're thinking about like academically, or so many people compare themselves to like other people, like doing better than them, or I wish I was them and this, but you just can't compare yourself to other people. It's just like everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Everyone's their own person. You just can't compare yourself to other people.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you can't really, I think the way people see it as is like apples to oranges. We're trying to compare apples and oranges, and we say we're all fruits. And so we're just saying you can compare this fruit to that fruit, but in reality, there's different types of fruits. And so I think, yeah, understanding that we're all different people, and you might not be as strong in something, and that's okay, because you're probably strong in something else. And it's, I guess it's kind of up to you to recognize through those mistakes and everything what you're strong at and what you can achieve.
Definitely.
And I guess that's like another thing is that uh like a lot of competitors are often pushed by their dreams to be someone else, even if they're not really passionate about what they're doing. Just trying to be in somebody else's shadow. And there's a difference between being inspired by someone and like making your life out of theirs. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would define being inspired as like a tool for motivation, really. Uh, Being inspired shouldn't mean that you want to do exactly what that person did, but I guess sort of seeing their journey and path and realizing that they made it out by doing that. And so you can make it out by doing what you want to do. And I guess taking tips and advice and things like that are good because they're there to help you, but you shouldn't really make you shouldn't try to fit your person and personality and everything into somebody else's shoes, because that's really not how that works. Um, because often you'll find yourself like not fitting in those person's shoes and you'll just keep tripping. Um, and so I think discovering what's out there for you that you can do and then growing in your own shoes in that direction is the best thing to do.
I definitely agree with, like wanting to be like, I guess, other, groups or, businesses, especially in my field. There's the audience that I'm trying to reach has like, a lot of successful companies that are my competitors. And when I first started, coming up with ideas of jewelry, I really struggled to, find like our company's niche. We had our like idea, but not our aesthetic, if that makes sense. So I struggled so hard to, really find what was our fit. And I did so much research on like a ton of companies, and I saw their success. I saw what they did. I saw how they made their products, and I was like, wow, I totally am inspired by this. Like, I love this. I wish I created this. And sometimes like even that, like sometimes I would look back at my stuff and I'm like, are you kidding? Like, you're competing with that. They're definitely going to beat you with what you're doing. But I like to think that, everyone has their own niche whenever you're doing your own project. You have your own project. You can't compare yourself to other projects, especially mine, because mine has its own niche of being, eco-friendly and, actually supporting a cause, not just going to, who's ever making the jewelry. So, there's always stuff to, individualize us and, make us unique. And you don't have to copy other people to, make a good project.
Yeah. And I guess that's like another thing is often competitors, like you said, will compare themselves with other people just because like even if they're like, I guess statistically worse than them, like they will compare with them to make themselves feel better, or they will compare with people that are statistically higher than them to, I guess, want to be that person, have a standard that they want to follow.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think the problem in that is that you can't just compare one thing and then like, yeah, you can't just compare one thing. Like you would have to compare every single aspect of your life and their life for that to work. And that's just basic science. That's why we have like only one independent variable and then everything else needs to stay the same. And
Mhm.
so like you can't just compare one aspect of your life with somebody else's and then not pay attention to anything else and then say you're better or worse than them just because of that one thing. Just because,
Mhm.
like you said, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses and we're individualized in some way. And just trying to be better, not necessarily like the damaging way where you're always increasing the goals that you set for yourself, but having like one set goal and then trying to, I guess, uh, be better than yourself each day until you reach that goal and then setting a new one. I guess that kind of, because you can compare yourself to yourself just because
Yeah.
you know you best, and that works because you really don't know who somebody else is just from like a rank or a number, but
Yeah.
you know yourself fully, so you can tell if you're doing better or not than before.
And I also think that, ties in to like anything, like even like physical aspect or like, academic aspect. I think you need to learn how to appreciate like the beauty of yourself, because like you said, you can't base somebody based upon their rank. There's so much more to a person and yourself. And there's just so much more than like just one label. And I think I went through it. I think I began to, appreciate the beauty of my site, being different, looking different than, super popular websites, and just not being the same. And I grew to love that. And this could go to, any example like physical appearance or, academic, anything academic wise. But yeah, I definitely think it's just best to, appreciate what you have and just love it. Because once you do, it's like an amazing feeling.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of, why not like lift yourself up with what you have instead of beating yourself down with what you don't have. I,
Definitely.
I think that's like kind of the realization to have there.
Mhm.
Because when you can lift yourself with what you have, you can go to greater heights. But if you keep beating yourself down with what you don't have, then you'll just keep sinking down and not be able to go where you want to go. And then it just becomes a vicious cycle because you never get to the goal that you want to be in. But yeah, like you said, being grateful for what you have and appreciating your differences will help you rise to the goal that you set for yourself. And yeah, that's just really important to living a successful life.
Mhm. And also to mention, most of the time people love unique stuff. Like every time I say I like hate something that I make, people are like, "Wow, that's an amazing idea," or like, "Wow, that's an amazing design." So we're all personally like so biased on how we think. So definitely check out other people's input on stuff. It's like totally different. Like everybody has their own like individuality, and everyone's like has their own thing, and we just don't realize it because our heads are all clouded in negative thoughts.
Yeah, that's another thing, like things that are unique about you that you can't really control because it's you, like, and you shouldn't really change that about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just being happy with it is like the best thing you can do. Like why be sad about it when you can just be happy about having that one unique thing about you that not that many other people have.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can even use that to your advantage. Like once you appreciate what's different about you, uh you're able to use that to your advantage. But if you keep treating it as something like an anomaly or something bad, you'll never be able to like use that in a positive way, just because you don't give yourself the space to think of it in a positive light. But if you keep like being proud of yourself for having that thing that makes you different, then you're able to use it in a way that makes other people proud of you for having that. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's definitely like the most important thing. If you like look at somebody else and you say, I wish I didn't have this about myself, then that's really the wrong mindset. You should be happy about yourself that you have that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of goes back to the idea of you should it's better to work towards like a goal that you have than just like, I guess, running away from what you think is wrong. Because when you run away from what you think is wrong, you don't really know what direction you're headed in. And so you may as well be headed in the wrong direction and you might not even know it until you're too far.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're sort of running in a direction that you know and you have like a set goal, you're kind of always moving in the right direction because that's your own goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think sometimes even if you have like things that you don't like, you should try to tell yourself, I don't like this. So what do I like and what do I want to work towards, rather than just saying, I'm going to stay away from this? Because sometimes you might be wrong about not liking that thing. And sometimes like 5 years later in life, you might be like, wait a minute, I should have like stuck with that and it would have been good because you didn't really have a goal set in mind. So I guess whenever you don't like something, instead of trying to like go away from it and looking at it as like something ugly or like a flaw, you should always have something in your mind that you're working towards, because A, that not only makes you more efficient, because often when you're just running away from something, you'll run in whatever path you see.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be like a trap or something. Like I'm talking about this in like a horror movie sense. If there's like a monster and you're running away from it, you might be running into the woods where there's more monsters. But the way to think about it is like if you're running away from a monster and then you think to yourself like I need to go to a safe place, then you'll run to like the safer place with like shelter and everything. You won't necessarily just run to wherever is the closest place. And so I think that's like the
Mm-hmm.
another difference in uh that's another difference in realizing what's wrong and then doing the right thing, rather than just realizing what's wrong and stressing yourself over that wrong thing and then not even like doing the right thing. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
you have to take both steps to do the right thing. You can't just keep harping yourself over what looks wrong. You have to sort of look at what's wrong and then realize what you have to do to make it right. And that's where
Yeah, I
learning
agree.
from your mistakes comes from. Like instead of just thinking about what you did wrong, thinking about what you can do right next time, that's where all that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
All right, do you have anything else?
I mean, I don't know if this is like too much of a plug, but like I
No,
said
it's fine,
before,
completely fine.
like I said before, we just made jewelry and blog, blog as well. Um, we're trying to add more writers, as well as ambassadors or just people who want to be a part of it. So if you're interested in, mental health advocacy or anything revolving, climate justice, feel free to, check out the Instagram, u.us.earth. Fill out the application. We'd love to have more people, joining. Um, it's definitely going to be a cool process. Um, we hope, for it to be super successful. And yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Yeah, definitely good luck with the US and Earth. That sounds like a very great idea.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Bella.
Well, thank you.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.